If anybody's interested in buying raffle tickets, then come on up. This is for the napkin, I mean, the towel and the sign, and then there's the $10 tickets.
I'll hang out after the meeting so that Al can talk and then we can.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so we'll get back to the light situation. I told you where they come from. I told you what occurs in the fall. What I recommend for people to do for light treatment is, because of the tracheal mites and anybody using a lot of oxalic acid, in the fall, you're basically going to need to hit them with this. And this is menthol crystals. And when Jennifer comes, she's going to talk to you about, I don't know what she's found yet for tracheal mites in the state, but a lot of people are losing hives, and some of them don't seem to be from mites. So you might be having a bad case of tracheal mites. The menthol crystals, there's a couple different ways to use them. The only way I use them, and I was taught to use them, is I throw a few of them into my smoker. And I put it in the hive and I give them a really good couple of puffs of smoke. And that's the only treatment I've ever used for tracheal mites. There's another one that my friend Linwood uses, and he soaks the shop towels with the menthol crystals. He kind of melts them down and puts them on paper and puts them in the hive. You could go online and find out, like anything else, there's a bunch of different ways to use it. I like the smoke it method. I worked with a guy, Tony Batchelor.
Need some help out?
Yeah, sure. You lost already. That's not my 48. But anyway, I learned from him, they had 700 hives, and they never lost any bees to tracheal mites. I broke it already. There you go. Let's keep going. Right there. We're pulling off honey there. Back then when I did it, I could lift up a whole hive body, set it on the back of a flatbed on top of other boxes. Can't do it now. But after we're done doing that, we're gonna hit them with the smoke, and then we're gonna wrap them. And like I said, he never lost a hive to tracheal mites.
Al, were you saying menthol, M-E-N-T-H-O-L?
Yeah.
It's in the bee books. People just don't pay attention to it because it hasn't been an issue. If you use a Mite Away Quick Strips, Mite Away Pro, that takes care of the tracheal mites.
Okay.
So if you're using that as a mite treatment, I just recommend that if you do the 2 10-day treatments in, say, August or July, you're going to want to follow up with oxalic acid with some way to check for your mite drop. I like the placemat method that I use. I take a placemat, like right off your kitchen table, one of those plastic ones. I hit them with the oxalic acid. I'll slide that placemat into the hive. If it gets stuck a little bit, you can put a thin stick on the yardstick or whatever and slide it in easier. Put the entrance back in, and your drop is going to be right there on the placemat if you don't have screen bottom doors. Just pull it out and get your count. And in 3 days, you'll know how far this is going to take you. Some journeys are quite long when you're dealing with mites coming in from other sources. I have some mites on a paper plate right there. That was 1 drop out of 15. That's how many mites were coming in. And if you really pay attention to the mites, you're going to find mites that are beige color, and then you're going to find more mites that are dark ruby red. The dark ruby red mites, I would almost guarantee they're not my mites. The ones that are beige and light colored are the ones that are coming out of the cells. And I was hitting them every 3 days. And I did this for 15 treatments. And I was getting that same amount of drop on that placemat. And I have different ways of doing it. I did a 2 10-day treatment after I pulled my honey with Amatraz. And then from there, I checked for a mite count. And then I knew it was high, so I started going into the oxalic acid. I have two different ways of doing oxalic acid. I have a great big water meter type thing with a heat gun on it, and I can put that into the hive. And then I have the wands. And I found that either one of them, it doesn't matter. Both of them give you the same drop. But the oxalic acid that goes in the water meter, I'm using a heck of a lot less oxalic acid. You have a water meter?
I both.
Good, huh?
It's a lot faster too.
Well, I could do like 40 hives in my yard in 15 minutes. And you don't have to worry about plugging them up. You know, before I had 2 wands going with a battery, I'd carry it around in a wagon. By the time you got done, you were sucking wind, right? 2.5 hours, you're putting one in, taking one out, putting one in, taking one out. Now with this different, you know, water meter type, Lincoln Senate was the one that really turned us on to
They
it.
don't make them anymore.
No, I got the last one.
Yep. They make them, but we don't import them into the United States anymore.
No, I got the last one. And actually, my heat gun that came with that system burned out and it's guaranteed for life. They gave me, I sent it back, they gave me another one. And I have a friend that has 2. He has 2 meters and he has 2 guns, so I just borrowed his for. I like doing it at the house. I got electricity at the house. I can run it out and just boom, I'm done. I can do that before I even go work with other bees on the outside. You know, so, but
Did I understand that if you use the Mighty Way quick strips, you don't need to use the menthol crystals?
Exactly. Exactly. Because the formic acid takes care of the trachea mites. And that's kind of one of the thoughts that they had. You know, they kind of said, we got these now that they're getting less mites because of the resistance to the trachea mites. I don't think so. It was the formic acid that was keeping the mites down to bay. And we'll find out when Jennifer, I'm going to see Jennifer, I'm going to see her 2 Saturdays from now. And she'll be telling us about, you know, what's going on in the state. And then, any other questions that you guys might have about the mites?
What about the heat gun? Is that, what type of control did that have? Did that have?
Temperature control.
Electronic number? You
Yep.
have to have a certain number, or can
Yep.
you guess that?
And you gotta, you know, you guys are lucky. You know, pick his brain right there. It looks like he's got a lot upstairs.
I don't know about that.
I mean, that's what you do. You get into a person's, that's what I did. I got into a person's back pocket. You know, I was the first time beekeeper and said, look, you know, I want bees, but I don't know nothing about them. Could you help me learn about them? He said, oh, sure. So they put me to work like you wouldn't believe. Because he was 700 hives, and then another guy with 500 hives. He even flew me to Florida. It didn't cost me nothing to get an education. Plus, I was killing other guys' hives. So, I mean, how can you beat it? You know, you go up into the blueberry barrens and you're working on bees up there, and if you're afraid of bees, when you pull up to 40, 50 hives in the barrens, the bees are stinging your truck. Okay, you get out and they're bouncing off your bale every which way. So I happened to come up with, you know, we wore gloves, we wore full suits. What I liked was the frame puller. Because now, working with gloves, you can take the boxes off, you can take everything off, but trying to get frames out with gloves is kind of tough. But that frame puller, I could go in, and he only ran 9 frames. I could go in and grab a hold of a frame, pop it, look at it, and put it back in without having to. I mean, it was a heaven sent to buy that tool to work that particular, you know, kind of bees. You guys with 2 hives in the backyard, it's totally a different ballgame. You're gonna get stung. You'll get used to it. The other thing I use for my mite treatment, this is probably the last, is like I said, I put this on the bees in the hive, but if you think about it, anybody that's an older beekeeper probably remembers at the beginning they said confectionery sugar on top of the hive with a screen. You remember that? And that would make the bees clean and groom. And it does work. When the bees are cleaning and grooming, the mites fall to the bottom of the hive. But they never told you that they're going to climb back on the bees.
Yeah.
But when you do this in the wintertime, it works. And I can prove it by if you go on, I can't bring it up, but on our Happy Hive Farm Facebook page, I did a mite collection, and out of 60 hives in the yard, I think it was, I went in and hooked all my bees out. You must do that. Everybody hooks their bees out. Put them in a dustpan, dump them in a 5-gallon bucket. Brought them over to the garden hose. Put 2 screens together, one coarse screen on the top, one fine screen on the bottom, and I started washing all these mites out. Out of all those hives, you know how many mites I found? 17.
Really?
17 mites.
Very good.
So all winter long, they were dropping the mites because of this, and then they were just, disintegrating, rotting. I mean, the bottoms gets pretty wet and whatever, but that's all I found for anything was 17 mites. And I was really happy. It was just something that I tried a few years prior to this, and I did it in a 5-gallon bucket in a different way. I put them in the bottom of the bucket, I put water in it, and I swashed it around. When I swashed it around, the mites got stuck on the white bucket. So you need to check, recheck your hives all the time for mites. You want to go into summer really, really clean. Into spring, you want to be as clean could be. Your biggest hives are the ones that are going to come up with the worst. Your nukes, you can treat a nuke so easy because it's so confined. Where your bigger hives, it's a little more difficult. The oxalic acid, when it goes into the hive, believe it or not, it won't go past the second box unless you have a gun like we have. Because as soon as it hits the cold, it crystallizes. You see it on the bottom of your frames. You see the bees carry it out. It'll come up like a dust in the bottom of your hive, and all of a sudden you look on your bottom board, right outside the door, you'll see like a white powder. That's the oxalic acid that crystallized on the bottom. So until you get your hives down to a good level of confinement, it's really hard to. But the Mite-Away Quick Strips works as a gas. You put it in your hive and it kind of sinks down into the frames or whatever. But I'm still trying to get my head wrapped around it. Should you put it in the second box or the middle of the first box? Because if it sinks, like they say, and bees fan down, why wouldn't you take care of both boxes and miss the second box? Did you ever use it?
What, Former Pro?
Yeah.
Yeah, I use it on my production phone. I put it between the 2 boxes.
Do you wear a respirator when you do it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, with Former
I
Pro,
made that
no.
mistake
With oxalic acid, yes.
With the Mite-Away.
Yeah. With the Mite-Away,
Went and grabbed the respirator real quick.
Well, you just said you don't have to
Yeah,
use
I don't use a respirator with Former
With
Pro.
Mite-Away.
I use it with oxalic acid.
Yeah.
With Former Pro, you just wear gloves.
Well, you should use it with the oxalic acid because it will burn your
Oh, yeah.
lungs.
Well, the Mite-Away, I found that I had to use.
You had to. Well, everybody's different. I have a friend that has COPD. He should wear smoking beads. It's just the way, some people. I try to put my smoker on a hive, no matter what I'm doing, and I don't want it in my face. I don't like my smoke in my face. I always try to put it downwind of me. If I start gagging, I'm working on a hive, and I gotta pick it up and move it when I'm in the middle of something. That doesn't sit well with me. I gotta know where sometimes the wind changes and it messes me up. I just don't like it. I don't like breathing it in. Another thing, I don't know about you, but when I'm working a real lot of bees, when I go home, I gotta wash my face. I gotta basically take a shower. The bees have little tiny hairs on their back, and they get in my eyes, my eyelids. My eyelids start to itch. And when I start scratching them or whatever, rubbing them, it gets worse and worse. But you would be surprised. If you ever looked in the sun or whatever, see how much stuff is in the air when the bees are in the air. There's a lot of stuff in the air.
So you don't wear them?
I wear a hood sometimes. Sometimes I don't. It all depends on what I'm doing and how long I'm going to be there. If I'm tearing hives totally apart looking for queen cells, or I'll definitely put my hood on. Sometimes I don't put it up fast enough. We've all been there. You'll come home. I mean, when I was working commercially, those guys that we were left right there when we were pulling honey, my job was to nail the tar paper on after they went through, rebuilt the hives, getting ready for winter, blew them all out. My job was to nail the tar paper on, and I was the last one. And in the spring, when they were making up nukes, I was bringing the boxes from the truck to the yard, back to the truck again, and I was the last one on them because I had to strap and get them ready for pollination. These guys would be in the truck sometimes laughing. you got 14 hives in a yard or whatever, by the time you get to the last hive, they're not happy that you're around.
Yeah.
You know, I always notice that if I have 4 or 5 hives in a row, when you get to the last one, they already know you're coming. There's no,
The alarm's gone out.
the alarm's going on. You know, once stuff's humming in the air, it's just, in the barrens, it was even worse. In the barrens, you have to take all the hives apart. There's 2 boxes, a hive body and a super. Set the super down against the hive and open every single box. You can't just open 1 or 2 and put them back together. Robbing would be so bad. Once you open the whole yard up, there were so many bees in the yard that everybody was trying to rob everybody. Everybody got into defense mode. And that saved you from losing hives. But you're swimming in bees. There's so many bees in the air, you're swimming in bees. And up there, we were using, instead of wood chips, anything like that, we were using hay. If you ever used hay for smoke, I tell you what, it puts out some smoke. I just wanted to go to the Florida one. I can't see the cursor. Anyway, good. Yep, that's good. This is when we were working down in Florida. Fly me down there, I'd meet him down there, and we start putting hives together. Well, this truck, before it got loaded, we went out into the bee yards, and because we're moving so many bees, we needed to make up 35 nukes. And we bought queens down there and put them in the nukes while we were down there. We were buying them from a queen breeder named Dave Mitzka. He was like renowned through the whole United States in raising queens. Then we would put them on a flatbed truck and bring them back ourselves on a flatbed truck. Only because every time you move these bees, you need to have more bees in to go into dead owls. Because when you net these over and everything starts getting crazy, where the bees are trying to fly in the nets, you lose queens. And it's about 35 every time we move them. So that's how I learned how to make more bees and nukes. Because when you're going to that many hives, if you're in a yard with 25, 30 boxes of bees and you don't have a queen, but somebody has eggs on the other side. Craig would go up one side, I'd go up the other side. I don't have a queen. Craig, you got any queen cells? Yep, I got some queen cells. Take them from him, put them in your box. You know, you got any eggs? I need eggs. Yep, so we're going back and forth. A lot of people say don't take something out of one hive and put it in the other hive because they'll fight. Not all the time, only usually during the dearth. So you could interact your hives with different components and do it all the time. Everybody that works bees, Bob's probably done it, and that's a really good way to keep your hive strong. And there's another way, if you have a very weak hive, and you have a strong hive, and you really don't feel like pulling something out of this hive and put it in this hive, switch their positions. When we were in the barrens, that's another thing we did and I learned was, at the ends of the rows, those were your biggest hives. So what we would do is take a weak hive and put it where the strongest hive was and swap them out. And as the forage bees come back with something, they accept them. They accept drones and they accept other bees as long as they have something in it for them. That's why in the dearth they fight like crazy because they don't have anything to give back. Anybody have any other questions? Nope. Well, I like to talk about raising some of your own queens. There's many ways of doing it. You guys are really good as a club. You might want to get together and do a little grafting because you can make so many queens that you're not going to be able to use them all. But if you only want to do it in your backyard, you know, I recommend either taking queen cells or using eggs and putting them in a nuke box with some nurse bees and kind of as many nurse bees as you could get in there because your field bees are going to fly back to to the parent hive unless you do what? Swap them. So if you take them, the eggs out, and you put them in a nuke, and you don't think you have enough bees to keep the eggs warm and viable, swap the hives, and you'll be all right. Don't be too fast to go in there and see what's going on, because it's going to take you almost 40 days to have a laying queen. 17 days for it to turn into a full hatching queen. Another almost a week sometimes before she has her mating flight, and another week to 2 weeks before she starts laying. So just be patient. You know, don't go in and after the queen's all hatched and the door's still open and it says, you know, my queen's not laying, but she most likely she's in there. If you have any doubt at all, if you have a queen, put a frame of eggs in. Go over to another hive, get a frame of eggs. You don't want to look for the queen. Give it a quick shake into the hive. Get rid of the bees on it. Put it into the hive that you think is queenless. Mark the frame. Put it in your second box. Go back in about 4 days. Look in there. If you don't see queen cells, there's a good chance you got a queen in there. 9 times out of 10, there's a queen in there that hasn't started laying yet. I have one incident that somehow in March I realized I killed the queen. And I can't remember exactly how I knew because I didn't even have it unwrapped yet. They were acting weird or something. So I decided to take a frame of eggs and put it into this hive. When I did it, they didn't make a queen. So I said, oh geez. So I tried it again. And nope, no queen. I went and put a nuke in it. 5-frame nuke right in the middle of it. Entourage, everything. Boop. I go back after everything started to hatch out. No way. She was laying when I put her in there. There's no way I lost that queen. They killed her. And I didn't realize it, but they killed her because there was a queen in the hive. But the queen was made sometimes in January and February and never bred. And I didn't know she was in there until I tried all these other things, and I said, you know what, I'm going to fix it. I took it out in the grass and shook it, and I found that queen. And I killed her and put another queen in, and then it was fine. But once in a while, and by putting the eggs in there, you're deterring them from laying workers. If you go a long time without any queen in there, your regular bees, all your not your foragers, but your nurse bees and your worker bees, and the nurse bees get old enough, they're going to start laying. The workers are going to start laying drones. And then you got a pretty good mess. And then again, you have to take that out a ways from the hive, and I don't know if you've ever seen it, Bob, but take it away from the hive.
I
And
did that last fall.
yeah, then put another queen in, shake them out. And usually the queen, the worker that's laying eggs, she's going to be heavier, so she's not going to go back to the hive. So that's the way you could fix that. Sometimes I tried other ways of doing it, but that's pretty much the best that I ever came up with to fix it. Any other questions? Go ahead, Bob.
Al, can you just take the steps from, say, the first week in June, when sometimes you're going to start seeing queen cells, swarm cells,
Right.
and what you would do with them, right then and there, and, like step by step. Because there's some people don't get don't kill the queen cell,
Right.
make another thing. Would you just step us right through
Right.
that?
When usually what happens is I can't give somebody a really good date, but I know it happens around apple blossoms. Apple blossoms is the beginning of swarming. I don't know, it just seems like that's when the most nectar's coming in, the hives are starting to build up really good for a summer flow. So what I do is I crack my hive body like this, and I'll look under the top hive box, and I'll look in here. And if I see queen cells, then I have to go through frame for frame the whole box. And like I said before, when I go through the whole box, I'm looking for taking queen cells out, I'm looking for eggs. Once in a while I find the queen. If I find the queen, all bets are off, everything's coming with me. Because she can start over again, and she's going to leave. So you just take the queen cells out, And I have 3 framers, they're called queen castles. And it's 3 frames, 3 frames, and 3 frames. And they have a hole over here, a hole over here, and a hole over here. So 3 frames, you could basically put a frame in with a queen cell, dump some more brood in it. You don't really need so much nurse bees because you already got it capped. The queen cell's already capped, so they don't have to make it. And then you do the same thing in the next compartment, But if you think about it, you're not putting a queen cell in a hive body, which is going to be way too cold to take care of that queen cell. The bees will not fly until August, and they can't forage because it's too cold. But when you do 3, 3, and 3, you're only 1 frame of being away from having a whole hive, so you have the warmth. So I'll have a frame of pollen and honey, the queen cell, and then the other frame is empty. It's drawn out comb, but empty. But the funny thing about my queen castles is the top of it and the dividers are made out of plexiglass. So I just got to take the top off, look at the plexiglass, and I can tell you what frame the bees are on before I even go in. I'll go in it to check and see if the queen hatched, she came back, all that. But once that happens, I'll leave them in there for a little longer. The other thing is, the reason why I use the plexiglass for the dividers is because they can see each other fight. No, that's not it. What I do is, it's very easy to push on that. So if you get a compartment that doesn't have a queen, she never made it back to the hive, something happened, you could just pull a frame out, push on that, pop that right out. Where if it was wood and they propolised it all in, I mean, I thought Luan was the way to go, and then I was over there with vice grips and everything else trying to pull this thing out. It just wasn't going. But the plastic, it just seems to be a lot better going than any kind of wood. I don't know how many of those I have. I probably have 4 or 5 of them, and I have some 2 framers too, and I think I'm going to be using them this year because I'm going to graft more. So I think I'm going to be using them. I have a lot of equipment.
When you're saying queen cell, in this case, are you talking just swarm cells or both?
It could be swarm cells, it could be even super secedure cells. There's a lot of people that say swarm cells are not good to use because you make swarmy queens. Well, I'm on the impression is if you use super secedure cells, what is grafting? They're emergency cells. You know, they're the same, swarm cells are a lot bigger most of the time, but usually, it doesn't really matter. You could get good queens out of it no matter what you do. You get good queens or bad queens. But that's the idea of putting them in queen castles so you can follow them, see, before you take them out, you want to see what you're doing, how they're doing it. So once you do that, and you'll never buy bees again. Lonnie's could tell you that we started off with 2 hives. Then I bought another hive from this guy I worked for. And then, I don't know, I just said, it doesn't make any sense for me to buy more hives or buy queens. I could make queens here. And then if I lose one, which was my mindset that everybody loses their bees, I could replace it with one, and all of a sudden I stopped losing bees. And that's where the problem came in. More and more and more. And it's hard to kill queens. It's hard to say, unless it's really bad, but it's hard to say, okay, in the springtime I'm going to take all these hives and combine them into one to go for a honey crop instead of more bees. Because you learn by working with more bees, because every hive is different. Every queen is different. There's a lot of people that sell queens on the internet or from down in Georgia or Florida or whatever that say they're mite resistance, they're chalkbird resistance, they're swarm resistance, they're all these resistance, but it's amazing to me because the guy that holds the mite on a pin and the bee attacks it, I've just talked to somebody from New Hampshire that lived in Arizona that said they didn't have any problems with mites in Arizona. And I said, what do you mean? He said, we got a lot of killer bees. They don't allow mites in the hive. So I'm not so sure that guy's holding that thing up with the mite on it saying, look at this honeybee, it just tore this mite apart. That might not even be one of our honeybees. you don't know, I don't know. If I don't see it, I haven't done it. I can't tell you that I've seen bees grooming in my observation hive, which I believe that's a nice thing. I watch them, they groom each other. That's about the best I've seen. I've seen them actually pull out the cocoons and land on the landing board. That's good hygienics for cleansing, cleaning the hive. So I look for those genetics. When I see it, I kind of like make a mental note, is this hive has this kind of genetic. But by raising your own queens, you're going to learn a lot, and you're going to have northern queens. Queens that right now they're selling package bees from $116 to $190, and they're all coming from. They have to come from down south because you're not going to wait until August to get your bees. I mean, I'm not going to sell you package bees. I can't. I think Tractor Supply right now is $190 for a package. But raise your own. Get a nuke box. It's easy to make. Raise your own queens. If you got 3 or 4 hives, it's easy to take eggs out, put them in there, and raise your own queen. And if you don't need it, somebody in the club might need it. Bob got something from somebody last year. Didn't you get some queen cells? Got them from him. See? And it's good that you give them to him. I have a friend that I gave bees to, and then last year, Chet Johnson, you remember Chet? Last year I went up there, he had the original Buckfast queens. And he had the eggs from the Buckfast queens, so I grafted from his bees. Well, he did something crazy this year. He lost all 20 hives. It wasn't to the mite situation. He went online and he saw something that he shouldn't have saw. I don't know how many people ever followed Fat Bee Man. That's why, right?
I have friends that lost 40 hives, but I watched one of his videos a couple of years ago.
Lost 3, Chet lost 22.
No, this guy lost 40.
40?
40. From doing the oxalic acid fogging thing.
Yeah, it wasn't, the fogger.
With oil and,
Right. But he did the fogger with the oil,
yeah.
not the oxalic acid.
It was oil and oxalic acid mixed together,
Nah,
like
he
mineral
didn't.
oil or something.
Yeah, mineral oil, just plain mineral oil. And I don't know, just like, well, mineral oil is good for you. You can eat it. Well, I don't know what the chemical reaction to when you burn it. But poor Chet, I tried to tell him, don't do it. I gave him my heat gun. Said, here, use this. What are you gonna do? There's other people that say micronutrients and whatnot, and then there's different things that they're trying to pull off of trees, like hemlocks or firs, and it's probiotics. Jennifer said that somebody tried probiotics in their hive and they lost all their bees. I think guys go online and they put this information in just to see what kind of reaction they're going to get from when you kill. And then they'll say, I just killed all my freaking bees. And the guy will say, well, that don't work. I ain't never using it. I don't know what they're doing. I just can't.
Try something else next year.
Yeah, something else I could scratch off the list that I wanted to try but didn't want to do it on my bees.
Snake oil.
I don't know. I just
Always wanted to know if that
like I
worked or
said,
not.
he's going to tell you something that he's seen. Bob's going to tell you something that he sees. But whatever's online, I can't vouch for those people. I can't, unless I could see it, prove that it works, I'm not going to tell you about it. There's another couple of things. I've done classes, it's true and false. I go into a room and I'll do a true and false. And there's 2 of them I can tell you about right now real quick. One of them is when you open up the book and it says when it gets real hot, your bees are going to beard. So I get a master beekeeper come in the room and they'll say, get to that point of when it gets real hot, your bees are going to beard. So what do you want? Well, there wouldn't be any bees in Arizona if it was because it was too hot, right? He's like, oh, you got a point. I said, when it happens when the humidity gets real hot in August. And I even told Jazak that. And he didn't even know it. He wouldn't click in his head because he was in another land at times. And finally, I explained it as if you're raising queens and you have queen cells, you need to keep them in a certain humidity, just like a chicken egg. The bees can get rid of the heat, but they cannot get rid of humidity. I was on the impression when I first started growing bees that it was heat, because they told me it was heat. I believe people. You're not gonna lie to me, are you? No. So I put screens on the top of my hive. I put stuff all the way around it. My friend put screen bottom boards, took them out. The more ventilation you gave them, the worse they bearded. Why? Once you got humidity, you can't get rid of it. And then I realized when I went down to see Mitska, that he had all his queen cells in like a cooler, like a soda cooler. And he had humidity, and he had barometers. You do the same thing with your queen cells? Yeah. You can't even transport them, really. I mean, you can transport a few with a damp rag in a container, you know, with some bees in it, so they know how to keep the humidity where they want it, kind of. But you really, it's, so every time they get to that phase, I just like, throw the book away, stop.
I don't know, but if you look at the bees in our area,
Yeah.
when I see the most bearding is about 6 o'clock at night, when you can't sleep because it's like
So
you can't-
humid.
Because it's so humid, and that's when they're not bearding in the middle of the day.
No.
Because the sun's on them. And in the evening, when it gets really humid, is when they're just out, because it's, I mean, 9 o'clock at night, full beard.
The other thing is, and Bob's seen it, I've seen it, I don't know who else seen it, was one of the things says that when you're breeding your queens, you need to be around a drone area. Right? Drone habitat, drone area, drone congregation area. It's going to be 5 miles sometimes away from your house. I got drones falling out of the sky, landing in the grass with no testicles. So I don't have any idea where the drone area is, but that thing didn't make it 5 miles from there to my house. Chet Johnson followed right on top of his hives. These guys called me one day and he said the whole place is up in an uproar. We were grabbing our suits. We thought it was a swarm. You're pulling in your driveway or something. And I'm like, I don't think so. I think you got a queen out there breeding. And that's a good thing, because when all those bees go in the air, the birds that want to eat them, or the dragonflies, it's like a bar mitzvah. They're out there to protect that queen. That's their queen, and they're going to protect it. So there's different things. And when they first came out with the Mine Away Quick Strip, just a regular one, and I don't know about this Mine Away Pro, but I just asked Google the other day about Mine Away Pro. And Google said that verbatim, it kills the mites in the cells. Once that wax is capped over, there is no way that that chemical is going to get into that cell. And I've had people test it and go in there with cap and scratchers and pull all the drones out and find mites. That's why I tell you, you have to go back and check after whatever treatment you do, check, and recheck. The videos are there. If you have any doubt, call me. But the videos are all there. The mite checks are there. The mite treatments are there.
You mentioned about the drone cells, because that's a great way to check your mites.
Right. That's what the captain scratcher's for. I left out some of it. I'll just, yeah, you go into the drone cell. If you find a bunch of drone cells, you go in there and you take your captain scratcher and you just pull them all out at one time, as many as you could. And then you can see the mites. But in the last few years, it's really weird, because even if you break your hive open, sometimes you have drone cells on the top of your hive in between the boxes. And if you have mites, you'll see them when you bust it open. In the last couple of years, I don't know why, but I haven't been seeing mites like I used to see in the drone cells. But I mean, we'll go to open hives sometimes with other people's hives and we'll open cells, and there'll be 2 mites per drone in a cell. When you start pulling them out with a toothpick, you're already in trouble. You know, you better get on the ball. And there's 2 things you can do when you start getting high mite count. The number 1, get your mites down. Number 2, start feeding. If you're feeding and you're in a dearth, or you're at the end of the summer where they're not bringing in a lot of nectar, those bees are going to shut down. When the bees shut down, all you're going to have is sick bees going in the winter. But if you feed a little bit, you're going to get another brood cycle that's going to be healthy. But number 1, mites down, feed, get another brood cycle. You'll see it too, because I've had queens that stopped laying just before fall, and I'm looking at her saying, do I kill you? What do I do with you? So I put a jar of sugar water on, she started laying. So sometimes you have to be careful too on what you kill and what you don't kill. It's all, you know, if it's not there, if the nectar flow is not coming in, they're not they're not gonna brood like they should. So, and it takes a while. I got a couple of different things here. This is a grafting rack, as everybody's probably seen them. What I do different than a lot of other people, and I'll pass this around, is it just makes it easier for me. If you look at the cup, there's wax in the bottom of the cup. I got a little vertigo. But when I'm grafting, and I start getting kind of impatient, because you need to get the larvae out of the cell. And then when you do that, then you have to put it into the cup. Well, when you put it into the cup, you need to lay it down into the cup and then let the larvae kind of catch onto the cup. You can basically feel it, see it, whatever, and then you can move your grafting tool away. But with the wax there, it gives me a chance to push down my hive tool into the wax, and like both ends will be perfect. Because if you roll that queen, I mean that larvae, if you roll it, you're going to drown it. There's two breathing apparatuses on the top of that you really can't see. This is what I made for graft, and everybody has their favorite thing. I know a guy that uses just a paper clip for grafting. He's really used to using a paper clip. So that's, I don't know, the Chinese grafting tool would probably be my least favorite one, because you could roll them coming off that. I don't know if you guys tried any grafting. Bob, you said you didn't try grafting?
No, not yet.
What do you use for grafting your?
My favorite is the Chinese.
The Chinese?
I use a bunch of different ones, but what I do is take a match and stick it into distilled
Oil
water.
jelly?
You gotta use distilled water, and then put a drop in every cell cup, and then the larva with the royal jelly just float right off.
Oh, all right. See, that was a trick I never. Every time I do a class, I learn. So you learn from me, I learn from you.
I learned from the guy that developed the JZBZ stuff.
Oh yeah, that's this stuff here. This was given to me. I used it one time. The reason why I didn't like it is because I put a queen in there and she took forever to lay. They don't like to lay in these things, but these are pretty neat. I mean, if you're not going to have a lot of stuff, these are pretty neat because you can put your queen cell in here, and this is attached to your frame, and she can hatch out in here. You know, hopefully the other bees won't come and sting her through this, but this is the. This is what it's made for. But I didn't buy that. It was given to me. And, I have another friend of mine that he grafts a real lot. And he'll take a razor blade and kind of cut the cells down so he can get to the bottom of the cell where it's at. So, I mean, I tried that. Maybe putting it in water would work better.
It just helps it float off, that's all.
Some people double graft too, though.
You can't use
So
all
take some royal jelly, put a match, put a paper match, put that in the cell and then float it onto the.
Dentist.
Yeah.
Jason, explain to me what you're talking about with the match in the water.
So I use the same cell cups that he uses, the
Yeah.
gray ones, that's the JZBZ system. He developed the cups, the grafting tool and all that stuff. And what he told me was that with some of the other tools, like the German grafting tool and some of the other ones, you don't get a lot of royal jelly with those. With the Chinese one you do, because it's got a little spoon at the bottom. But sometimes just getting the larva to float off of that the right way, like Al was saying, if it flips, it's done. It can't breathe. They have spiracles on the top of their body, and if you flip it over, they'll drown in the royal jelly. So with the water, it's just less than a drop. You take a wooden match and you drop it in distilled water, and then you drop it in the cell cup, and then when you graft, you would just putting it into that water, the larva will just float right off.
So you put the water in first?
Yes, and when I graft, I use the same cell bars he does, and I have like 20 of them lined up. And I'll set up 10 with the water. You just drop, and you just go and you graft and you put the larva in each one.
The reason why I made this box is because it was easier for me. I don't really have a place to graft. So what I do is go in my truck and I tilt my steering wheel to accept this. And I got plenty of light.
Mobile
And,
and comfortable.
And it gets me the right angle I need it to be. And then, because I'm a little older than him, I have to use cheaters. I use cheaters.
I use reading lead.
But you can actually see that larvae when you're playing with it. It actually moves. I was really amazed that the thing is moving, you know, when you're doing them. So this other guy that does it, he dry grass, but he actually just goes in there with this very pointed paper clip and picks them up in the middle. And they're not really too worried about the royal jelly, because when you're doing it, you're putting so much resources in your hive next to the graft. You're putting a frame of pollen, and then you're putting a empty frame that's not drawn out, and then you're putting a frame of honey in there. And you're only looking at, when you're grafting, is about 4 days, and everything is already pretty much capped over. So I don't know. I was told years ago to go in, save royal jelly. I have a little jar. I used to save royal jelly. Then take a match, a paper match, and put it into the royal jelly and just put that in itself. You know, so everybody has, just like beekeeping, everybody's gonna have a million different ways, but no matter what you do, mites, feeding, looking for queen cells, taking queen cells, you know, again, I'll just tell you, make sure you got eggs before you steal everything. Then take whatever you want, as long as you got eggs. You can't screw up. You're gonna make another queen cell if you got eggs. But everybody has to be at a certain place at a certain time and keep beekeeping. And then there's a million ways of getting there, but you've got to be there. You know, you got to go in every 10 days and do your checks. You got to take care of your mites. You got to take care of your feeding. If you do those things, you'll be successful. You'll be more successful than you could imagine. You know, and that's what I want from people. I told Bob a long time ago, I like to see people in this area start selling, you know, a few nukes or whatever. If you make too many bees, I'm sure you could get rid of them right here without even people having to go anywhere. So, and I think a lot more people that I sell bees to are getting more successful because of their mistakes. I mean, I don't get the call. Sometimes I make follow-up calls and say, hey, how you been doing or whatever. Some of them are doing quite well. But they're always just a phone call away. I get phone calls from all over, even in Massachusetts. So I have Carter Oil, this guy down there, George, he bought bees from me. Last year we were down for a wedding, so I went and stopped at his house and started above Cape Cod, and I inspected a couple of his hives for him. But we're always on the phone. I'm always on the phone with somebody's, and it helps me. The more I teach people, my brain's like a Rolodex. They call me up with a problem, and it's like, it pops right out. You know, you're given this gift to remember, to understand what's going on. And the more I teach it, you know, I'm thankful that I get to do this stuff because it really helps me a lot. Oh yeah. I've had problems in my area with herbicides, I believe. It could be pesticides. Every year, we'll post something on the Facebook or the internet or whatever. I've tried to get Jazik to come down. He would just say, I tried to get Jennifer to come down. It's just like, you're on your own. Jazik told me they were starving. This is an article I had put in the local paper around Hartford. I probably lost about 60,000 worker bees last year. I didn't lose the whole hives. But when they were out foraging, they came back and started dying. And they were actually, I'd never seen this before, they were dying in the bottom of the hive. Coming out, rolling on the ground and going upside down and trying to get up and moving all around. But if you go on our Facebook page, you'll see how many bees were dead. And I know that CMPs have been spraying a lot of herbicides on the sides of the road in August. So this happens in the end of July, early August, almost every year. And a few people from this club said, you know, you ought to call the TV station or whatever. And it's like, all right, Bonnie sent an email to Channel 6 figuring I could get somebody up there, maybe Bill Green or somebody important. And nothing. I tried to get a representative from the area to help me out. Dick Pickett came to my house, brought his grandson, looked at all our mounts we have in the house. He did a book report on it because he's being homeschooled. I saw him during the campaign this year. I said, Dick, how'd you make out with CMP? He said, well, what do you mean? I said, yeah, you were supposed to get me an MSDS sheet on the chemicals they're spraying. He said, well, they said they didn't do it. I'm like, so I don't have any idea how to combat it, but every time CMP goes around and sprays under all these power lines, they're spraying right over asters, goldenrod, all this stuff. And it's not only affecting our honeybees, it's affecting all the pollinators, the sweat bees, everything. So I don't know if you guys ever see this up here, you know, with what we do. I don't know.
They do spray up here.
Yeah.
When we bought Richard and Pat's house, they had with the state a no spray agreement.
Right. You could put that in front of your house, but I was chasing them guys, Lucas, all the way up the road. The guys are spraying out of the truck. They're sitting in the truck with the hose out the window, spraying across these ditches with water. I'm like, there's water in those ditches. You know, you guys, I got bees over here. So they said, all right, they took off down the road. 10 minutes later, I'm right behind them again in another bee yard. And they're like, look at pal, I said, we got to do this for a living. You know, this is how we make our money. So we can't stop because of you. But if we don't have the MSDS sheets, then we don't really know what's happening. If this power line goes through, they might be spraying that power line with airplanes.
Yep.
Because Bonnie worked for Champion Paper, and they sprayed herbicides after they did a cutting. You want to save, I mean, what's the best thing we have in the state of Maine? Our water. Our water is pretty much prestige.
Yep.
And if they keep spraying this stuff, our water is not going to be, they're going to say, oh, your water is no good no more, we're going to go find it somewhere else.
Well, it's just like the windmills. You can't get people interested in the corridor.
Oh, you can't.
They'll make money off of it.
My biggest thing was, why do you take out all these dams when you already had power lines going to them?
Yeah.
If you called me up and you wanted me to carry a fish up around the dam and throw it back in the other side, I would have been there.
Yeah.
But it's all about how much money people can make. So that's what's driving
Yep.
Climate change.
the industry. But if we don't speak out, we're not gonna stop it. And I'm starting to think that if we get enough bee clubs together with a few spokesmen here and there, maybe we get some kind of petition going on with signatures. I always know when I used to go to Washington and bring like 1,500 votes to something, that my voice was heard. But when you're the only person squeaking the wheel,
Yeah.
it doesn't work so hot.
Yeah. I called Janet Mills's office. They really don't sound interested, but I at least
You
made
did,
a
you
phone
did.
call.
Yeah, that's good. I give you a lot of credit for doing it.
Does anybody know if the Maine State beekeepers have been or involved in that?
With the pesticide stuff?
Well, with the corridor.
I would doubt it.
Yeah, I would doubt it too.
Yeah.
Because it's too political.
Yeah.
Right. Right, but they're not looking at the whole picture. I mean, it's not only killing the honeybees. I mean, we got sweat bees, all these other kind of bees that the state is promoting. It comes out of Oregon. That was one of Frank Drummond's biggest pet peeves, and now they got another lady going around to the Jennifer spot. We tried to get in on that talk because I wanted to talk about the herbicides and the pesticides, but it was already taken. Now Home Depot, you know that fogger you're talking about? Home Depot got something you put in a fogger, and you heat it up and you pump it, and it kills mites up to what, 3 or 4 months? I'm not mites, ticks in your yard. That's going to kill everything. I mean, that's going to kill, if you spray it on clover, it's going to kill the bees, it's going to kill the worms, it's going to kill the spiders. I always thought if you want to start a new business, maybe you can help me, Bob. We'll raise spiders. Organic killers for apple
There you
trees. You
go.
let your spiders go. People do it with, what you call it? No, not only ladybugs, primanas.
That's right.
They sell them. We can do it with spiders. Maine has a million spiders out in the field. We can go collect spiders, put them in little boxes.
Do
Arachnophobia.
they kill ticks?
No.
Yeah.
I don't know. If they get caught in the web, they might. There's another thing I found out about ticks. I have a yard, and it's in a dry spot, very dry. And every year I have a lot of ticks on my hive. All 4 hives, actually. And I don't think, they're not looking for the blood, they're looking for the warmth. There's a couple of different things that they're attracted to, and one of them is warmth.
And
So when they feel, there's no moisture here. It's unbelievably dry. Gloria habits, it's bone dry. It's on top of a rock. So it's the heat at night, it's warm, so they collect to it. So that's another thing for you, Bob. A box with heat in it for night. And then take it and then kill all the ticks. There's 2 businesses, spiders and mice. Spiders and ticks. You're right. Oh yeah, and the last thing I'm going to tell you about is bears. Anybody that has hives anywhere in the state, be aware that you can be visited at any time by black bears. One day I was up in the house and I don't know if I was fixing lunch or whatever, and I hear it rumbling out in the yard. And I figure, oh man, somebody's dropping me off something in the yard that I probably don't need, but they think I need it. Well, that wasn't even the case. I walked out to the bedroom to look out the window, and here's this bear knocking over my boxes. Well, luckily those boxes were empty, and I had a bear fence around the bears that were on the other side of the driveway then. So this bear's out there, and he looks up at me, and I look down at him, and he just about gives me the finger. I go in the house and grab the 30-06, grab 30-30 bullets, come out, look back at the bear. I'm trying to look. Oh shoot! I have to go back in. The bear is still there. I'm starting to walk across the driveway to the other beehives. I finally got it loaded and I dropped them like right next to the driveway. I had to call the game wardens because I couldn't have this mess of blood in the yard and have people come in here and say who died or whatever. So I called up the game wardens. Shabbat came. As soon as he pulled in the yard, he started ragging on me for killing the bear. He said you should have shot over its head. You should have chased it away. And I said, I trap bear, I hunt bear. Once they get into your beehives, they're going to be back. You're not. It's like a raccoon. You can't keep them out. So I shot it. And I said, this is not how my day was going to go. I want you to either give me a ticket to take this bear and put it in your truck, or give me a ticket so I could have it. One way or another, I need to either start gutting this bear, get it in the refrigerator, or take it away. So he went up to his truck, printed this great big thing off why I shouldn't have shot the bear, and then he gave me a ticket to keep it. And if you talk to the biologists in the state, they say you have the right to kill that bear. So I don't know where Shabbat was coming from, but you know, I did kill the bear. It tasted good. It's up on the wall.
Oh, it's on the floor.
This year, in the fall, Bob, you know where my house is. I have the garage down here. On the other side of the garage is the pond. And an apple tree in the pond in October, there was a bear at this apple tree. He walked by the beehives up to the clothesline and then pulled the feeder off the clothesline. But I have this bear fence that's unusual. The charger on it never shuts off. It's constant electricity to the fence.
It's not intermittent,
No. Nope. It hurts like heck when you get
but
whacked.
it does.
But the thing about it is, not being intermittent, a bear, I've seen bears go through a fence before and get partially through and then get whacked and pick their head up and pull the whole fence down.
Wow.
Where this thing here, and I asked the biologist, but he really didn't know. And I don't know. I could ask Google, but she'll probably not know. The fence is put off like an ozone or something. It's something we don't hear, but they hear off like the power lines. It puts off a noise. And being steady, that bear didn't even hesitate.
2 years ago, I had a bear from the fence up. That went up the next night, and he got, because I put peanut butter on my wire and zapped him.
He was not happy.
And he was not happy. But the clicking also, you know, most chargers will click, 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 and it's pulsing. They hear click, 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 and they remember.
Yeah, yours remember that I had bear dates
time I caught the click, click,
I
click.
had bear dates out behind my house.
Yeah.
And I had a 6-volt charger. I converted to 12-volt and had a large click, click, click.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, he pulled the darn insulator, and I had a picture of it, pulled the insulator right off the fence post because of it. But he wasn't trained.
Yeah.